As regular followers of my work know, the desert anarchist and writer Edward Abbey greatly influenced my life path. I began reading his books as a college student when I was 20 years old. I kept up with his written work and had read all his books when he died on March 14, 1989, in Tucson, Arizona. His death occurred about 6 weeks before I assumed my tenure-track faculty position at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Had he stayed with us a few months longer, or had I arrived when I was offered the position a year earlier, we might have met. Alas, I had already committed to serving the 1988-89 academic year as a visiting assistant professor at Texas A&M University, my first position as a professor. From my earliest days in Tucson, I began hearing Cactus Ed's quotes from friends and colleagues. His humorous aphorisms made their way into water cooler conversations on a regular basis. He was particularly well known for disparaging reservoirs. Correctly so. The two largest reservoirs in the United States were, and are, on the Colorado River. Abbey referred to Lake Mead and Lake Powell as Lake Mud and Lake Foul, respectively. Contemporary evidence indicates the challenges associated with depending upon these reservoirs, as he foresaw. Consider, for example, Edward Abbey's famous line about the Glen Canyon Dam, the dam on the Colorado River that creates the environmental disaster known as Lake Powell. Quote, "All dams are ugly, but the Glen Canyon Dam is sinful ugly." End quote. This lake has long been touted as a recreational paradise for motorboats and water skiers. Less well known are the profoundly negative effects on native plants and animals. On the other hand, several species of harmful, non-indigenous species are doing great. One of Abbey's early comments about dams came in his 1968 breakout nonfiction book, Desert Solitaire. He was referring to Lake Powell with these lines, quote, "The new dam, of course, will improve things. If ever filled, it will back water to within sight of the bridge, transforming what was formerly an adventure into a routine motorboat excursion. Those who see it then will not understand that half the beauty of Rainbow Bridge lay in its remoteness, its relative difficulty of access, and in the wilderness surrounding it, of which it is an integral part. When these aspects are removed, the bridge will be no more than an isolated geological oddity, an extension of that museum-like diorama to which industrial tourism tends to reduce the natural world." End quote. Needless to say, the reservoir was filled with the consequences Abbey warned about. Much more recently, the headlines are pouring in. This one comes from the May 18, 2022 issue of the Salt Lake Tribune. Quote, "Only 25 years ago, draining Lake Powell was dismissed as loony. Then the mega drought started." The subhead reads, "A group of environmentalists plotted the restoration of Glen Canyon long before it looked like a strong possibility." Yes, Edward Abbey was among those environmentalists who plotted the destruction of the Glen Canyon Dam, and therefore the resurrection of the Colorado River and its ecosystems. His 1975 book, The Monkey Wrench Gang, provides a fictional depiction of his desire to remove dams and many other outcomes of industrial civilization. Much later, the removal of dams throughout the world has become viewed as an excellent strategy for restoring natural ecosystems and processes at relatively low cost. 5 days after the story was published in the Salt Lake Tribune, Fox 10 News in Phoenix, Arizona brings this headline, "Lake Powell, producing energy to millions, majorly threatened by drought conditions." Majorly? Really? Did the headline writer graduate college? Of greater importance than the grammar, the story indicates the water level of Lake Powell has dropped 100 feet in 11 years. The rapid rate of decline has accelerated during the last 2 years, and the last time the water in the reservoir was at its current level, it was filling up for the first time. Another 132-foot decline, and the dam will stop producing hydroelectric power. 6 million people currently depend upon that power. A headline from the Los Angeles Times on June 20th, 2022, reveals the accelerating urgency of the situation. As Colorado River reservoirs drop, western states urged to act now. The story includes the following information. Quote, "With the Colorado River's depleted reservoirs continuing to drop to new lows, the federal government has taken the unprecedented step of telling the 7 western states that rely on the river to find ways of drastically cutting the amount of water they take in the next 2 months. The Interior Department is seeking the emergency cuts to reduce the risks of Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the country's two largest reservoirs, declining to dangerously low levels next year. Tanya Trujillo, the Interior Department's Assistant Secretary for Water and Science, said during a speech on Thursday, "We have urgent needs to act now. We need to be taking action in all states, in all sectors, and in all available ways." Trujillo's virtual remarks to a conference at the University of Colorado Law School in Boulder underscored the dire nature of the river under the stresses of climate change and the urgency of scaling up the region's response to stop the reservoirs from falling further. She provided details about the federal government's approach to the crisis 2 days after Reclamation Commissioner Camille Kalemnem-Tauten announced that major cuts of between 2 million and 4 million acre-feet will be needed next year to keep reservoirs from dropping to critical levels. End quote. The latest information about Lakes Mead and Powell includes headlines such as these. From Reuters on June 20th, 2022, dams, taps running dry in northern Mexico amid historic water shortages. From 8 News in Las Vegas, Nevada, on June 24th, 2022, there was nothing I could do. Man's boat gets stuck at Lake Mead after water levels drop. From the Colorado Sun on June 24th, 2022, with an article pointing to peer-reviewed research recently published in Geophysical Research Letters, Colorado's drought is bad. Tree ring history shows it could get a lot worse. Here's the bottom line, quoting a co-author on the peer-reviewed paper. Quote, "In spite of the persistent and severe drought, we do show that at least some trees were able to survive these extreme conditions, a testament to the capacity of trees to withstand drought." That's right, folks. The good news is that some stunningly drought-resistant trees survived a drought nearly 2 millennia ago. I need not point out that Earth was relatively cool at that point compared to today, or that the rate of environmental change was slow compared to the contemporary rate. So then, on to the solutions. After all, I hear and read every day how clever we are and that we can solve anything. The solutions proposed for Lake Powell so far include reducing water usage in the Phoenix metropolitan area, the 5th largest city in the United States of unearned privilege. I'm pretty sure water restrictions will not be well received among the 5 million folks in the metro area. One of the consequences of depending upon water in the desert is that, whereas nature always bats last, nature comes to the plate earlier in the desert than in many other locations. Additional cuts have also been proposed on farms in the area. Arizona farmers are already being affected by water restrictions. The so-called solution of reducing water going to farms involves sacrificing food for water and energy. A well-worn phrase comes to mind: it's time to tighten our belts. Tighten our belts indeed. As with restrictions on water consumption and electrical usage, I'm guessing hungry people will be unimpressed when the empty shelves at the grocery store extend to more than pandemic-induced toilet paper and dairy products. A common phrase back in the day among informed radicals on the University of Arizona campus was "flush twice for Tucson." These people knew that draining waters to support humans was, at best, a short-term proposition. The decline and ultimate disappearance of desert cities meant that other organisms in the Sonoran Desert would thrive again. What they and Edward Abbey failed to recognize was the best-kept secret in the science of climate change, the aerosol masking effect. As it turns out, significantly reducing industrial activity on this pale blue dot will drive up the global average temperature even more rapidly than the current ongoing rate of change. As a result, Earth will lose habitat for humans, and therefore all life on Earth. That's a bummer. However, as Abbey wrote, quote, "Better a cruel truth than a comfortable delusion," end quote. I'll conclude with a line from a speech delivered by Abbey, delivered on the spring equinox in 1981. The speech was delivered at one of the first public events held by Earth First. Abbey's remarks from that 1981 speech included this line, quote, "Let engineers build 50 more dams between here and the Rockies. They can only retard, they cannot stop, the irresistible processes of erosion and renewal. The mountains and plateaus will continue to be uplifted, the rains and snows will fall, the waters will plunge downward back to their source, again and again and again." End quote. If only it could be. If only the aerosol masking effect were something I invented. If only the rapid rate of environmental change would prove insufficient to cause the extinction of all life on Earth. If only our knowledge from the spring equinox of 1981 were accurate today. If only. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. Click the bell when you subscribe so you'll be notified about future videos. Become a member of this channel for additional perks at as little as 99 cents per month. Mostly, though, thanks for watching.